Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports as we are coming to you live from our Pontchartrain production studios. Yep, added another show. Want to thank our friends here at WLAE-TV for adding another broadcast for us. Each and every Thursday we're coming to you live at 1 o'clock with a rebroadcast at 6 p.m. as we always do. Of course, we'll go through the times of the program at the end of the show. Tonight, one of our favorite guests. I get more emails about this guest than anyone else. Mike Detillier joins us from WWL Radio, and of course, we will talk about all the home teams. We'll talk about the Saints, LSU, Tulane. If we have some time, we'll touch on the Pelicans head coaching search. But to break it down for us is Mike Detillier. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Always
Goes
good
to show
have
my
you.
servo works pretty good.
I'm telling you. And believe me, that's not hyperbole. I'm telling you right now, if Mike's not on once a month, I'm getting all the emails going, when's Mike coming back? So thank you for being so gracious with your time.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Mike, before we get started, I mean, you're in the middle of football season, even though, again, we're dealing with COVID-19 here, there, and everywhere. You're involved in a lot of stuff, plus your book coming up, too, obviously, with the draft very, very soon as well.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't stopped. None of that has sort of blocked it, other than I haven't seen Big Ten players or Pac-12 players. Right. But other than that, it's as usual. And the shows are as usual. Football is still big, as much as, you do see a drop in the ratings. And you sort of expected that would happen. And this being a political year. Are
you surprised here in New Orleans, though, that we're seeing the drop in the ratings like we are? I mean, it is every week we have seen a drop in the ratings here in the city.
I think distractions from football.
Okay.
I really do. And I have a friend of mine who is a pollster. He actually worked for Lou Harris in the 70s. And when Lou Harris was the only pollster.
Right.
He's a New York guy. I tell him he's trying to pass because he married a gal from Lockport. And he's like, come on, Mike, I don't understand what that means. But he lives on the bayou today, and he still does, he's in his 80s, still does poster work for political campaigns, also for TV. And he's made the comment every political year, presidential-wise, the ratings take a dip.
Oh, I didn't realize
that. He said there is a connect the dots involved with it. And he said especially over the last, say, 16 to 20 years, when cable has opened up the viewing audience where if you want to watch MSNBC or Fox or CNN and you want to get your fix of political things, it's there for you. And he said it is a distraction. So he said this isn't a real shock to him. And he said, again, in a year of upheaval, that is even more part of it. But he said, still, when you look at it, the NFL is still such a clear-cut number one.
Right.
He said, you know, look at the other people behind you, and they are clearly behind. But he said, I think there is a bit of a backlash from some who maybe didn't like some of the upheaval of the offseason. And he said, you feel it. But he said, eventually, he said, that'll dwindle back into normalcy once the presidential election is over with. At least that's his feelings toward it. And, you know, when you've done this since, I think he started 68. Doing poster stuff. So that's a long time.
Got some skins on the wall.
And so he knows what he's talking about.
Mike, I want to get into the Saints in just a moment, but overall, between the NBA, the NFL, even college football, I think it's been handled, the COVID-19 situation and the protocols have been handled fairly well. Look, the NBA was in a bubble. It was different there. Major League Baseball had some issues early, but again, those have kind of waned. We're seeing some positive tests in football, but they're maneuvering the games around on the NFL, and you know, on the college game, we're seeing postponements like we did with Florida LSU this week. But for the most part, I think that those that are in charge have handled the situation fairly well.
Oh, there's no question about it, and they expected it, that it would happen. I can remember talking to Coach Orgeron back, I think it was July, and we did the show right after, and I told you he expected that there would be games that would be moved around because of the COVID situation, because at that time, he was still a little bit uncertain about how things were going to play out. The NFL has a built-in system, and it wouldn't be surprising that the NFL figures out we got to expand this season a little bit longer, and that it may be late February before the season ends. But my thing about it is, so what? If it ends at the end of February, the beginning of February, it is that the one thing in talking to people, even doctors, physicians, in the area where I live at, also in doing work for Thibodeau Regional Medical Center, their biggest concern going into the season was what would happen come November, December, January in the heightened part of cold, flu, pneumonia season, and also COVID. All at the same time you're dealing with that. They expected that would be a second wave of it. Just because it's out there now, I think some people feel a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to be around. And listen, if the President of the United States and Nick Saban gets it, is there two more protected guys in this world?
Not. And the guys that get tested all the time, guys that are, you know, but yeah, no, I agree with you. There's no doubt.
I expect that you're going to see some delays, some cancellations in college football, like you've seen with LSU, Florida. You know, you wake up this morning, Atlanta has the test, and so we'll see what happens with the Falcons game. We've seen delays in certain games. That Houston played their first game last week.
Was that something?
You know, and you saw early on, but then, you know, man, then all of a sudden, you know, you saw the Heat hit after that. They came into gear pretty quickly. So it's not a real surprise that you're seeing games being delayed, pushed back, everything else. And there's some flexibility here. The college football season built in for it, where the NFL, I think, has a plan to expand that accordion if it has to.
And look, it's not like, and we just saw the Super Bowl being moved because of the 17-game schedule from 24 to 25 here in New Orleans. Tampa has the Super Bowl this year, and so you're in a situation where it's not like Tampa has Mardi Gras, right? If they need to move it back, I don't think it's a big issue for the city of Tampa to move it back a few weeks if they have to.
Another thing with Tampa, you know, and the man upstairs has a funny sense of humor sometimes. You look at who won the NHL championship? Tampa. Who is on the verge of possibly going to the World Series? Tampa. Tampa got Tom Brady this year.
That's right.
You know, and it's almost like, okay, and I know probably all three won't, you know, well, one of them already has. The second one's on the verge of it, of possibly getting into the World Series, and it's just you and somebody else at that point. I'm not sure about how the networks feel about having Tampa in the World Series. They would rather Houston and the Dodgers. Come on. That's just obvious at that point. And the Bucks, other than Green Bay, is they're a dominant team. Seattle's been lucky. And listen, when you win the Powerball, lottery, you ain't because you're a great numbers picker. You got a little bit of luck involved.
Right.
Now, when does that catch up with you? Because eventually, what God giveth, he taketh away
Yes, he does.
somewhere else. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Bucs have as good a chance as anybody. I think Green Bay is certainly the front runner at this point, the way they've played.
Yes.
And they've been fairly healthy to this point, too, that they look to be the front. But again, front runner in October don't mean you're the front runner in January.
Don't we know that,
no, we
right?
know it.
Yeah.
We know it.
We know that. Speaking of, the Saints 30-27 winners in overtime over the Chargers. This is far from the team that we thought we were going to see thus far this season, but this has always been a slow starting team. But we heard in the offseason, again, one of the top teams in the NFL. They don't need an offseason program. They don't need preseason. They don't need to be able to practice against other teams. That myth has been now dispersed, right? I mean, this team has really started slow. They needed camp as much as anybody else did.
Yeah, the time bomb went off.
Right.
You need work. Football is not a switch you can turn on and off. You got to play it, bottom line. And every year is different. I hear from, family members or friends, man, I remember when Drew Brees did this or something. Okay, that was what, 2016? Okay, we in 2020.
Right.
It's different. Everybody's different. It doesn't matter. Every year is different. And I think the uncertainty of 2020 has now come into play here. That now you see all of this stuff about, well, they kept most of the team, everything will stay the same. Wasn't quite the case.
That's true.
Wasn't quite the case. The one thing that does stay the same, this football team has been middle of the road in September.
True.
Last 21 games in October, they're 19 wins, 2 losses. That's unreal.
Yes.
That you've somehow been able to squeeze games out in October is when, almost like a track sprinter who get out of the blocks sort of slow, and when he hits about 20 meters,
Right.
it kicks in, he's off. But this team has been like that is really impressive. That somewhere it catches up, and it's been an offensive showcase
Yes.
across the board, like that in college football. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And now it's in the pros. Eventually, you know what happens? That catches up too. Wait till it gets a little colder.
Right.
Late October, November,
Right.
defenses have played.
Right.
They get 6, 7 games, 8 games under them. You won't be seeing these 31, 28 games, 45, 40 games. It'll be those 20, 24 games. Watch. I'm just telling you, the defenses eventually will kick in.
Right.
But it's about playing. Come on. You're not Al Bundy
Right.
at Polk High. You're not playing in your backyard. This is the professional
And it's
ranks.
a collision sport, too.
And it's a sport where you can get hurt very easily. It's a brutal sport. We saw what happened to Dak Prescott
Yes.
and on that situation. So, again, nothing stays the same. So nothing really surprised me so far that this team would get out of the block slowly and now play well in October.
Right.
It's almost like a script. History doesn't repeat itself, but it has the same ring. Has a lot of times the same ring, and you're starting to hear it with this football team.
The defense is really the head scratcher here. A lot of people thought going into this season this would be a defense that would be one of the top defenses of the NFL. To your point, it's taken some time for them to get going, but it still is very troubling. The penalties, the bust that we've seen, especially in the secondary, the inability to cover the tight end, crossing routes. Why don't you go ahead and give us your synopsis of what you've seen on this defense thus far and what your expectations are?
Mental mistakes have been huge for this team. Okay, you're supposed to get this guy, and then, you see a guy roll up the field and the receiver runs right past the corner. He thought he's got help. But everybody, look, man, Patrick Robinson, he looked bad on that play. Well, guess what? The safety run right up the field. He didn't even look toward that direction. So those sort of things happen early in a season, and then they just don't happen to the Saints.
Right.
They happen to virtually every team in the NFL. But I think you get better with it as you play, understanding, and it goes back to this old line I've always used. You can't get on the field if you don't know what to do all the time.
True.
Part of the time, half the time, you can't play.
No.
You got to watch. You got to know what you're doing every play.
Right.
And what you've seen is a lot of mental mistakes. And now, I had an old secondary coach tell me this a couple years back. He said, you know, I coached in the NFL for 19 years. He said, 14 years in the college ranks. He said, one of the things I see more today than I've ever seen is these crossing routes. So he said, what happens is you spread the field out with 4 receivers or a tight end and 3 receivers. Okay, those guys cross the middle. Okay, I got you for a little while. Now you got to get him.
Hand it off.
And he said, guess what? You hear the baton. Like if you in a track meet and you hear the baton hit the track, cling, cling, cling. He said, how many times you hearing that cling today? Not only in college, but in the pros.
Right.
He said, you can hear the baton hit, and it's a mental mistake. You got to know what you're doing.
Yes.
And he said, again, that's the big difference in today's game. It was much more of a vertical. You're getting up the field, you run the chalk.
Right.
Okay, and then you throw the deeper pass. Now he said, watch today. You'll have a couple guys they cross in the middle. You got a running back that goes one way, swings out the other. So, okay, I got him here. Now you got him. Okay, you make the mistake. You watch LSU games, you see it virtually every play. As soon as the baton gets hit, man, I can hear that baton hit that track.
Right.
And it's all about knowing what you got to do on every play. And it's happening in the NFL of not knowing, okay, do I have it or not? And who do I cover? And how long do I cover him for? And it's, it's basketball on grass like never before.
The troubling thing is, though, for the exception of Malcolm Jenkins, this is a defense that has played under Dennis Allen for a while now. You should know your assignments by now.
Yeah, you would think so.
Right.
And so, again, that's all about focus, concentration. Make sure you know what you're doing on every play. Because now you're not giving them the same look.
Right.
You're trying to change it up to disguise certain things. And two, Eric, I wrote about this maybe 4 years ago, the lack of a pass rush. And I see it in the high school ranks where you go to these camps. And we had a camp one time. We had 592 people show up. 96 of them were receivers or tight ends. And my thing is, you got to be kidding me. That got that many receivers, tight ends. And you look at the defensive ends, Eric, I could have put them in a little room right behind us. They got 10 or 12.
Right.
So you figure it out over a course of time. It is a personnel issue. It's occurring in the high school ranks. You see, okay, when we growing up, the high school, man, if you seeing scores 13 to 10, 12 to 7, 20 to 13. Today, look at these high school scores. It's in the 40s and 30s. So it tells you the lack of really quality people up front.
Right.
And the receivers. I can play 7-on-7. I can practice that 10 months out the year.
Yeah, that's true.
You go up to, because I went up to a couple of guys, stay 6'3", 6'4", and I tell them, you play defense in high school? Oh, no, sir. No, sir. I'm a wide receiver. Oh, no, I'm a flex tight end. It's like, what? You don't play any? No, I've never played defense. Never.
Right.
And you're like, wow. That guy 15 years ago, he's playing defensive end or outside linebacker for somebody. He's not playing receiver because they weren't throwing the football. Now today, 7-on-7, and the way the world has changed, that I can get better quicker if I spread the field out and throw it. Look the difference it's made with an SMU, a Houston.
Right.
How quickly they came into fruition because of it. Oregon, a great example out in the Pac-12. And when Chip Kelly was there and what he put in, it changed everything.
Yes.
Now, people get upset that it'll never happen to my SEC. Well, then don't turn your TV on.
Right.
Because it's happening in front of your very eyes, and it's here, and I'll use the term forever. It's not going away.
So it won't be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It won't be a grinded out SEC anymore, in your opinion. It's going to be an aerial SEC like we're seeing now.
Well, you might see 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's when that guy run past you and he kicked that dust up behind you. And that's the only time you're going to see 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Mike, I get this question all the time, and I know you do as well. Look, first of all, I think Cesar Ruiz looks like he's going to be a really nice offensive lineman
really
in the
is.
NFL.
Completely.
But the Saints' need at the linebacker position is glaring. You see it now even more. And when you see what Patrick Queen is doing at Baltimore, it's a head scratcher. It really is.
Yeah, I knew Patrick would be a good player for the NFL. He was a little undersized, but it's his ability to run the field, drop in coverage.
Right.
Man.
Saints can't cover a tight end. This is a guy that can cover the tight
He
end.
can cover a tight end. And the thing with Pat was that when he first started at LSU, first time I ever saw Patrick Queen, he was playing running back. Okay, he was a running back, and then they moved him to outside linebacker. When Patrick Queen hit LSU, I bet he wasn't no more than 205 pounds. I mean, he looked like a running back. And now he's 230 in that range, and but his athleticism to run the field is so good, so I can match up. I can match up against you. Look at Anzalone, man, he's getting beat in the coverage part of the game.
Not physical at all.
No, and so now that's what the game has turned into. Talking about Queen and looking at LSU, doesn't LSU miss him and Jacob Phillips?
Are you kidding me?
The way teams are running the ball, and also those little routes underneath. Man, you weren't crossing where Phillips and Queen were. You might think about going a little bit deeper. You weren't going to mess with them. So it goes to show you how this game has dramatically changed. I thought that would be the pick for the Saints with Queen. I thought he'd be a great fit, not only for who he went to with Baltimore, but if he'd have come here to New Orleans. I think he'd have been a great fit. Nothing against Ruiz, who I think is a really good player.
Absolutely.
But defensively, man, that is a big hole.
It is. And we saw Zach Bond play a little bit more last week, but more against the run. We thought it would be more of a situational pass rusher. That hasn't happened. And the question is, can he be that guy that can cover tight ends, cover backs coming out the backfield? You're a guy that watched him during his college years. Is that part of his repertoire?
Okay. I read all this stuff about, I saw him do this and I saw him do that. You know what I saw him do? Rush the quarterback. Okay, every once in a while he dropped into what I call small coverage. Okay, he's headed back 5-7 yards. That's it. He wasn't dropping deep in coverage. Come on, he was a pass rusher. And that's great to write if you're an analytical guy. Okay, whoopee. That don't mean nothing. You watch him, he is not quite ready.
There's no doubt.
To be placed in that situation to be covering a tight end. Now, he was physical against the run. I thought he was a terrific pass rusher. That's what he did best. Come on, what Wisconsin, those outside linebackers are noted for?
Absolutely.
They weren't noted for dropping back in coverage. So some of this stuff you read and you see, come on, that to me, it's a pea and shell game they playing with you with that. I think eventually Zach may be a really good cover guy. We haven't seen it.
No.
Okay, so if you haven't seen it yet, you know what that means? He's still learning how to do it.
What's the answer there? Because look, teams are going to start taking. Teams know already. You saw it last week with a rookie quarterback. Again, when he needed a play, he went to Hunter Henry. When he needed a play, it was a crossing route. They have not been able to solve that, and this is not just this year. This has been something that's been carried over the last couple years.
You're going to have to go to nickel and dime real quick. Take the linebacker out. And put you in another defensive back. And so now, they get you in the rocking chair. Okay, you get smaller, you know what I do? I hand the ball off to the big back and take off running downfield. And so
and these tight ends are big and physical now, too.
Tight ends now are like junior receivers.
They can run, they can catch. And
you see Waller and what he did.
Yeah, he destroyed them.
Against this team. And no matter who they put on him, he was beating them. Linebacker, come on, I dare you. Safety, come on, I dare you. Cornerback, come on, I dare you. We had Coach O on during the week, and I asked him about Kyle Pitts, who's at Florida. And he said, man, we had a lot of people wearing 84 jerseys this week.
I bet.
And he said, we tried to do one-on-one with him last year. He said he beat us like a drum. He said he couldn't do it. So I think part of the strategy would have been quite possibly to put Derek Stingley on him or bracket him. You're not going to go one-on-one with any of those DBs other than Stingley.
He's so big and physical, even if you put a Stingley on him, I mean, again, it's like trying to put Gardner Johnson with the Saints on a tight end. Yeah, he could probably stay with them
for a short time.
But he's going to get out physical at the point when the ball is thrown.
And now you see these guys like Kyle is 6'4.5". He's 255 pounds. But you look at him and say, man, he's really thin, isn't he? Yeah, and he run right past you too. He's fast.
Right.
So he's not only a fast guy, he's a very physical player. Now, you're not going to play a Kyle Pitts every week. You're not going to play a Waller every week. But Hunter Henry was a guy that is never been quite the same since he's had the knee injury.
Yes.
Never been quite the same player. And going back to that game brought me back to Manning Camp 2019. I'm sitting down with Justin Herbert, and I asked him, what do you do best? What's something you really need to work on? He was like, I think I threw a short pass really well. He said, I got good touch with it. I've really worked on it. And he said, I really love to throw the ball deep downfield. But he said, I'm in my fourth offensive coordinator in 5 years.
Yes.
And he said, I don't know how we're going to do that. He said, what I need to really work on is my passes from like 11 to 21 yards downfield. He said, my accuracy is a little off on that. He said, that's something I really have to work on. Now think about it. Watch that game. How many passes you saw from 11 to 21? 2. He threw everything either real short or real long.
Right.
So you know what? If I figured it out, and he told me that,
Yes.
and I said it on every pregame show I did, that he basically was telling me, I don't throw that really well. I need to work on that. And you saw a couple passes, he's just a little off. You saw the receiver, and he's a little off on those, what I would call middle range throws. But he's a star player.
He's impressive. And the ability to be able to make time with his feet, but keep his eyes downfield and throw the football with accuracy is another thing that he did very, very well.
He came through on the Thursday at Manning, and one of the plays was he rolled out. He threw the football on the run, and so I'm standing on the sidelines, and he runs right past me. I said, listen, they're fixing to move you to tight end. And he said, listen, I'm fixing to play it if they want. I mean, he is a very athletic big man,
He is.
And he can run. Just a great story. He told me the story about how Herbert Hebert is related.
Yeah.
I told him, Bobby always tells me, you got the R in there because one of your relatives got in trouble and y'all moved to the Pacific Northwest. And he said, it's probably true.
Right.
Something like that happened. But he was not heavily recruited, did not have a major college offer until Oregon came in his senior year. And he lived 4 miles from the Oregon campus. Just think about that.
Right.
Talking about a storybook deal.
And not a guy that, when you look at him in the NFL, is a system quarterback. No, he's the real deal.
No, he's the real McCoy.
Right.
And you think about what you're seeing with Joe Burrow. Right. Man, you feel for him, but man, he can play big time.
You can see it.
He's got a lot of confidence, but if you take that type of beating, you're not going to last a year.
It reminds me a lot of Archie Manning when he came to the Saints.
A little bit in that area.
Yeah.
But man, he can throw the football just so well. We haven't seen Tua yet. And I suspect that won't be too much longer that you're going to see him. But, man, that special group of those 3 guys, they're going to flip the script.
Right.
You're going to flip the script in the AFC because that's the future of the AFC along with Patrick Mahomes. We'll see how well they can build around Deshaun Watson at Houston.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk offense on the Saints side. We'll talk about Michael Thomas as well. Then we'll get into some LSU. We'll talk some Tulane. If we have some time this afternoon, we will talk about the candidates for the Pelicans head coaching job. Today, with us on the program is Mike Detillier of WWL Radio. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Why don't you stick around and listen to our underwriters. Thanks.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. With us this afternoon is Mike Detillier of WWL Radio. Let's talk Saints offense, then we'll talk a bit about Michael Thomas. Look, there seemed to be more of a commitment to run this year. Okay, we saw 42 rushes against the Lions. Went back to more 25 rushes, 48 passes against the Chargers. But again, they fell behind, so they were falling behind. But they got a physical running back in Murray. They got and Kamara looks like he's back to again the Kamara that we've all known. Again, to me, with an aging quarterback, the offensive line, which to me looks like a more physical offensive line that runs blocks better than maybe they pass block. I would hope that, especially the second half of the season, post-bye, that we would see this team with a more of a commitment to run. What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, you got to have the patience to run the football. A lot of times we've seen that hasn't necessarily been the case. But the Saints under Sean Payton have played 79, basically you could almost say 80 games. Okay. They've won 95% of those games when they've run the football 30 times or more. Okay, I didn't go to Cornell and Yale and Harvard, but even I know that when that happens, and don't give me that stuff about, they just ran it to close the games out. No, you started running the football.
That's right.
You don't run the football over 30 times a game just to finish the game out. Right. Sometimes that does happen, but the majority is you run it early and you set the tone, the physicality.
Yes.
There is still part of this game that will never change. Running the ball, stopping the run.
That's right.
You got to have those elements. Make them one-dimensional. And as you pointed out, Murray's inside running skills. Kamara's just been terrific this year.
Incredible.
Just awesome. And that catch on the sidelines, that was fantastic. And with Drew, it's almost like watching, and he's better than Peyton was his final year with the Broncos. But there are some similarities that I think Jimmy Taylor told me this years ago. He saw some writings in the paper about Adrian Peterson when he came here. And Adrian Peterson had drunk from the fountain of youth, and he was going to be the 25-year-old Adrian Peterson. Right. And it's just a few days back, Jimmy passed away. And so he called me up. He said, Mike, that's no way. He said, listen, that's no way that he can be that type player. He's got way too much mileage on him, and he's been hit that many times. All these sort of things. He says, I'm just telling you, there's no way it can happen. But he said, let me explain what happened to me. My final year with the Saints, I was shot. And I was playing behind an expansion offensive line.
Yes.
So he said, I wasn't the same player. But my last 2 years with the Packers, I could touch greatness every once in a while, but I couldn't do it each week. I thought about that after watching Drew Brees week 1, that it's the same thing Jimmy was talking about with him, you're talking about with Drew. He can touch it every once in a while, but it's not going to be the consistency I think we've all sort of expect. You grow into that deal with it's going to happen every week. So protect him with a running game.
That's right.
The Broncos won a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning was a shell of himself. Yes. They won it with a running game and a great defense.
That's right.
That's how they won it. And Peyton, at the final year, he wasn't as good as Drew is today.
Right.
So you can do it, but you're going to have to be more patient with the running game than you've ever been as head coach of the Saints.
Yes.
Because of the fact there is Father Time is undefeated and untied for a reason.
It's true.
He beats everybody.
Right.
I don't care who you are. In any profession, he catches you.
Right.
And that ring the doorbell moment is, and Drew knows it better than anybody.
But he can still play. And you can help him by having a strong running game. Okay, where again teams have to respect that running game, which is going to open up things for him to be able to throw the football.
And every once in a while, you throw the deeper pattern, you get that safety out of the box.
That's right.
And when Thomas is going to be back in the lineup, Then you got your security blanket back. That guy that could run that slant pattern, he goes over the middle, he'll catch it, 8 yards, 9 yards, move the chains, 12 yards, move the chains. And now you've gotten some rapport now with Emmanuel Sanders. All of a sudden, that's come together.
Right.
Traquan playing with some confidence now, finally. Playing with a little confidence as a player. We all knew he was a good blocker. He's a tough guy to go over the middle. But now he's got some confidence in catching the ball.
Yes.
Jared Cook making plays. At the tight end position, Alvin, a big part of this passing attack as a receiver. And maybe you've got somebody that down the road may be a pretty good player too. And Marquez Callaway, and who's really come through for you as a football player. He's a tough guy. He can be someone that can help you if Deontay is down for any period of time as a punt kick return guy. Man, at Tennessee, you can't go by that.
Right.
Man, the Tennessee passing attack with the Volunteers was garbage for a long time. You know, and he averaged almost 20 yards a catch. That's what people don't gather.
Right.
How he lasted and wasn't picked is amazing to me.
Well, good pickup by the Saints. Michael Thomas, you think, okay, the Saints could have really stuck it to him if they suspended him, and it would have went to his bonus, and it really could have been a stickler for him in terms of money down the line. He got fined $59,000. They didn't call it a suspension. Do you see anything lingering with this going forward?
I doubt it. Come on. I've done some events with Mike. He is low key.
Right.
Doesn't say a lot. Once you get him on that field, he's competitive. And sometimes what I see with receivers today, they're a little sensitive. You can press that button and kind of poke them a little bit. And then one thing leads to another. A fight on a practice field, what? I've seen hundreds of them in my life. I knew that wasn't the reason why you were getting fined or suspended, whatever you wanted to call it, that he wasn't going to play. Well, no fight on a practice field. We're talking about practice.
Right.
Yeah, it was much more than that. That got into the locker room, everything else. And you get coaches involved. You know what? You got to leave it go.
Right.
You got to leave it go. And I was telling you the story. Man, this was many years ago. Mike Ditka had not taken the head coaching job with the Saints. He was doing Wednesday nights with Diliberto on WWL. Richie Pettibone comes down. So all four of us are there. And they talking about the championship season in '63. They win it all. And Pettibone and Mike were talking about every day that was a fighting practice. And Mike was, you know who instigated it? The head coach, Papa Bear. He said, practice would start to get sluggish. He said, Papa Bear had something to do with it. But he said, you know what? You had a fight. You might have thrown a punch. You might have kicked somebody. But when that stopped, it stopped.
Right.
Over with. You're still my teammate. You don't take it into the locker room. You don't take it outside. It's finished with. Pettibone stopped him and he said, yeah, but Mike, that was back then. It's not that anymore. I think about that. That's over 20 years ago that he made that comment, and Pettibone said, you know what, it's different today. Guys grew up differently. They're more sensitive to criticism. And if you sort of needle them about something, eventually they're going to crack. He said, I'm just telling you, you can't do that the way we did it so many years ago. And I think that's the exact situation with Mike. I think Mike's mature enough. He understands that. Come on, once it's over with, it's over with. And take the criticism a little bit.
Sure.
People are going to needle you.
Right. And if they know they can needle you, and
now
the
opposing teams know it too now.
That's right. And that becomes an issue. Taysom Hill. I tweeted out and talked about it on the show this week. He went from secret weapon to drive killer. Well, in this case, to getting the touchdown. But for the most part this season, he's been figured out. What's the situation with Taysom Hill?
You got to use him differently. Come on. When he comes into the game, you can almost hear the other team. He's going to run the ball,
right.
And it's not no RPO play. It's RRO play. It's run option.
Right.
But I was so glad for him he scored because, the last couple of times he had touched the football, he had fumbled it. Watch the play he scores. The ball hits him and he double clutches it. And I'm like, I didn't see it at first that he double clutched it. You saw it the second time they threw. I was like, oh, God.
It's almost like he took his eyes off
of it, and he was looking up the field. He is a great competitor, and he wants to do so well. But now you put him in a spot where everybody sort of knows it's coming. Now, he did score on that play, and he's a terrific runner out in the open field.
Yes.
But now you see teams jamming up the line of scrimmage saying, okay, come on.
Right.
We know what you're doing.
He's going to have to throw the ball eventually.
Eventually, you're going to have to let him throw it.
You got to.
And you saw when he threw it the last time. We've talked about it on this show. We've seen it in practices in the past. When he misses on a throw, it's low. It's never high.
Right.
It's low to the ground. You saw he's trying to dig it off the turf. That's just part of his game. But you're going to have to let him throw it.
Right.
And get those defenses to back off the line of scrimmage. He's a great football player, but how you're using him now, you got to change it.
Right.
Because now everybody's sort of figured it out.
It's predictable now.
Yes,
I agree
very
with
much.
you. Let's shift to LSU. 1-2, loses to Missouri 45-41. You know, they made Mississippi State here. This was an historic win for Missouri. The problem right now is not the offense, okay? Even though, again, they could run the ball more. Maybe again you could question the line a little bit, but let's talk about the defense. Bo Pelini was brought in to simplify the defense for Aranda. Up to this point, that has not happened. You know, again, guys are confused. It's mass confusion out there. Bust. This is not an LSU defense. Talk about what you're seeing and what you think the answer is going forward.
Well, sometimes you can pour a little bit too much whiskey in the shot glass.
Sure.
And it's poured out. You're giving these guys way too much thinking to do. They got to react. And you can see they're sort of looking at one another like, okay, I thought you had him.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Was I supposed to get him? So now you got to simplify it now. And it's not so much about scheme, but it's about teaching what you have to do.
What's your responsibility on
and
every
what you're
play?
on every play.
Right.
Okay? You can't just turn a guy over and he's supposed to get him and he's not there. Now you got difficulties. And I think what happened here, Bo, with no spring, like most coaches do, my system is what it is, and I'm going to jam it in a short period of time.
Right.
It did not work.
Especially with 19 or 22 starters gone and all the talent you lost on defense. Now,
And-
there's some talented players on that defense.
Oh, yeah. They're not recruiting 1-star and 2-star athletes.
right.
Come on, you got 4- and 5-star guys across the board. But, Eric, there is something about shared experiences in life. Okay? There is something about that. That 2019 team had shared experiences. Losing to Troy.
Yeah, true.
Losing to Alabama. And those
Culture
experience of all working together as one. These guys have never worked together.
Right.
You know, it's a whole new group of guys.
It is.
But so if that's the case, right off the bat, you cannot throw them everything at one time. Not in this offseason. You couldn't do it. You had to simplify it. The other part of it, and I'm going to bring it up, lack of a pass rush. So I tried to get O to bite. And like Bobby always says, you load the sandwich up with bologna. Sometimes, you know, you try to lead him into telling you something he may not want to say. Now, he might privately tell you,
Right.
but say it on the air about how the lack of great pass rushers has affected LSU,
Yes.
Alabama, Florida,
Of course, across the
all
board.
across
Look at
the
the
board.
scores.
You see it. And he said, yeah, I agree, but I think I got two pretty good ones. Okay, you got two pretty good pass rushers.
Right.
Ali Gay at times has shown
Yes, he has.
he has been a really good pass rusher. B.J. Ojolari, I think, has got a chance to be a really good pass rusher. Okay, my thing is, if they were pretty good, where they were against Missouri. Bozolak sat back there. He threw the football downfield. He could have played with the same shirt and pants
telling
on
you.
Sunday that he did on Saturday. He never touched the ground.
The defense is making quarterbacks look like Heisman Trophy candidates.
And so look what they did Costello.
Right.
And, man, everybody after the game, man, KJ Costello, he's a first-round pick. Where?
Yeah.
Oh, who's picking him in round one? Ain't nobody picking him in round one. He's not a first-round pick quarterback. Now, LSU's defense made him look that way.
Right.
But, again, you saw a little bit of what probably you thought you might see a little bit of, but not to this extent.
Right.
And, man, they just keep banging away and banging away. Vanderbilt was no test.
No.
No test at all. And so.
Well, you should have won the first 3 games. The teams you played were soft. They're not very good teams. Missouri's not a good team.
They're not a
Mississippi
physical
State's not a
team.
good
They're
team.
not a super talented
and neither
team.
is Vanderbilt.
Well, look what's happened to Mississippi State
Right.
past LSU.
Yes.
They've got their clocks
Right,
cleaned.
there's no doubt.
Missouri difficulties in the first few games.
They had won a game until the LSU.
Here's the thing, too, is that you didn't realize at the goal line, you got a first down at the half-yard line, and Missouri was without their starting 2 defensive tackles and their rotation guy. He got hurt during the game. Okay, my thing is, isn't somebody supposed to be watching that?
Right.
It's not the coach on the sidelines. He can't see that.
It's up there.
Somebody in the booth got to say it. Listen, we got to do that. And Ed used the line, we should have used the Bush push.
Right.
We should have used that Bush push and get right behind that deal. And even Bob brought it up about, Ed, I don't get this. Why are we taking the ball from their shotgun? We stepping back to go forward. Why don't we just have that quarterback get under center and let him get into the line and have that running back pop him in the back, just like what Bush did to Liner.
Yep. No, I would agree.
So it's coaching now, because I think for Bo, he thought he could implement his system to these younger players. And if you'd have had a spring, maybe that would have worked.
I agree with you.
Maybe. But I think now it's become way too complicated for them. They don't understand what they're doing, and so you see the mental mistakes. It's just not every once in a while. No, Eric, it's every play.
It's every play.
And it's just not the defensive backs, it's the linebackers. And here's my thing that really aggravates Orgeron more than anything. They couldn't stop the run against Missouri.
Right.
Man, it was open and wide up. They were up the field.
Right. And that's not LSU defense.
That's not LSU's defense. It goes to show you how much they miss. Jacob Phillips, Patrick Queen in the middle.
Agreed. Coach O's a defensive coach. Do you anticipate him getting more involved down the line?
Yeah, I think he's more involved.
Now.
I think he's more involved now with it. When you're the coach, you're the CEO, and you have.
He's done a great job of doing that, allowing assistants to coach.
Now, he was criticized earlier in when he was at Ole Miss, and deservedly so, because I've seen it.
You got to step in.
He was a micromanager.
Right.
He went to coach the running backs and defense. I was like, what are you doing? You never played this position. That don't mean nothing. I got to coach them up. Okay, I get it. But you got to trust your assistants that they're the head coach of their unit.
Yes.
You got to trust that. I feel the same way about Alabama. I hear this, man, Pete Golding's one of the worst defensive coordinators I've ever seen at Alabama. I can't believe he's still got a job. My thing is, look who's his boss.
That's right.
Isn't he one of the greatest defensive minds of our generation?
That's right.
And he can't fix it? You think if he knew better, he would fix it, right?
That's right.
Okay, now Golding's taking the heat. And here's the thing with Alabama. The thing that Nick fought against all those years, this fast-paced offense, spread the field.
Like it.
Now, he's doing it.
Right.
Offensively.
Well, he has no choice.
He's doing it because you know what? He decided, if I can't beat him, I join him.
That's right.
And so, man, would you want to be a defensive coordinator now in today's game? It's the worst job in the world.
Right.
Worse than head coach, because you know what? If I'm the head coach, I can fire you as a defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, man, I'm caught. And it is personnel across the board. You don't see it as good up front as you did in sort of our generation.
Right.
And even 10 years ago, you had some depth. It's gone now.
Look, nobody wants anybody to get COVID, okay? Nobody wants anybody to get coronavirus, but this is a blessing for this team to not have to go to the swamp with possibly 2 freshman quarterbacks having a split time with Miles Brennan out and playing against Florida in the swamp. Having to delay this game to December the 12th is probably the best thing that's happened to this team because it gives you another week to get what's wrong right.
Well, it'll help because, Eric, no matter what, it's not going to change overnight.
There's no doubt.
Because, again, you can get it better, but all of a sudden this team isn't going to be a slam-the-door defense.
No, but you got to know your assignment.
But even last year, who took more heat early in the season than Dave Aranda? Now, the same people that are complaining about Pelini, run Aranda out. He's overpaid. He's overrated.
Too complicated.
Too complicated. Now, all of a sudden, we miss Dave.
Right.
No, you were complaining about him last year. It's the worst job in pro sports today to be a defensive coordinator at a college and pro level because the game is dramatically changing.
It's an offensive game.
It is becoming Madden football in real life in front of your very eyes. And for people our age or maybe a little bit younger, man, what's going on? Blame the coaches. No, you also got to take a look at the players that are playing too It's not the same game, and it's not your daddy's NFL anymore. It's dramatically changed.
Miles Brennan, pleasant surprise, based on what again, how he has grown from game 1 to game 3.
Yeah, Miles has really played well, and man, he took a shot on that sidelines, and you could tell, just by his body language with his shoulder.
Well, even the defensive lineman got hurt on that play.
That something was wrong with him. We find out a little bit later that he probably wouldn't have played if it would have been Saturday against Florida. And even worse, Terrace Marshall limited, who's having an unbelievable.
And Gilbert as well.
And Gilbert. So Miles has played well enough for you to win. Now, the final 2 passes against Missouri, that wasn't great. Right. But again, I think he's played well enough to win. He's not Joe Burrow, but we didn't think he was going to be Joe Burrow. No. Just be the best Miles, and now he's getting some experience, some rapport with his receivers. The amazing thing is to watch Marshall. Yes. And when you watch game tape, that he's double covered or bracket covered, and he runs right past both of them, and he gets open. Yes. And it's not just a 5 or 8 yard gain. He's averaging 20 yards a catch.
He's been incredible.
Fantastic for a team. You going to him.
Right.
And he's basically started sticking you the football middle finger, say, I dare you to stop me. Right. And they haven't been able to do it.
And look, eventually, again, he's going to be able to move that ball around a little bit more. But I've been impressed with the fact, keeping his eyes downfield, stepping up in the pocket, not getting flustered by the rush like he was in the first game. He's grown a lot as a quarterback.
Their offensive line has been what I thought. The Achilles heel offensively on this football team. They're not able to run the football when they need to, and they have to.
Right.
Everybody say, give it more to Emory, give it more to Tyron Davis-Price, give it more to Curry. All I'm seeing is those linemen are getting pushed back
and that's
into
Mississippi
the backfield.
State, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. What happens when you got to get the big boys?
And, at times they look as soft as cotton.
I'm right there with you. Let's go to Tulane. 2-2, 0-2 in the conference. They take on 17th ranked SMU on a Friday. Kickoff 5 p.m. at Yeoman. Losing to Houston last week, 49-31. Mike, the first thing that just stuck out with me is Houston hadn't played a game yet, but the difference in athlete speed between Tulane and Houston, night and day.
It was like somebody who was a sophomore in college playing against somebody who was a middle school guy.
You're not exaggerating.
From a speed standpoint. Right. They outspeed athleticism, and even Willie Fritz made that comment. Look, the athletes, and they lost their top receiver before the season even started.
They just out-athleted them on almost every position.
It was so funny. You turn the ball over, and you're a plus in the giveaway takeaway ratio.
Right.
LSU's a +6 today, and they 1-2. That stuff about, used to be able to, and we always make that comment, give me the stat sheet before the game and I can tell you who they win, if they win. For the Saints, it's rushing, it's third down conversions, and it's giveaway takeaway.
Yes.
If you look at LSU's deal or Tulane's deal, man, how are you that much ahead and you losing?
Yes.
But when you saw the speed of Houston, and if you think they got speed, wait till they play SMU because that quarterback for SMU is better than the guy Houston got. That's all I'm telling you. And Willie even brought it up that it's rare that you see that type of player that he would go against who says you see that type of player in the pros.
Right.
You don't see him in college, and especially at that level that you see it. And so, man, it's tough. If you can't get a pass rush consistent, and Johnson, Sample have gotten a decent pass rush, but it's not every play. And okay, I'll take the sack, 2nd and 14, they throw an 18-yard play. Bang, 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 bang. And again, it's basketball on grass.
Right. And look, that was the biggest takeaway from that game is because you're looking at Tulane in increments getting better and better within that conference, right? But when I saw the difference in athlete between what Houston has and just in a year, because again, look, they played Houston close last year, ended up beating them late. The difference was night and day.
And you could not control the tempo of that game. You rushed the ball 40 times for 70 yards.
Right.
Come on, that's...
And you got a strong backfield.
And you got a really good backfield. And I give credit to Houston defensively.
Yes.
Their front seven played in their first game a lot better than I thought they would. Because I thought Tulane could maybe control the tempo, especially if you got a lead. But then when you saw Tulane try to run the ball, man, those linebackers were right up there shooting. Their safety was there too. He said, oh, this might be trouble time. And then, man, they started hitting receivers and they were running free downfield.
And then the other part of it is if you can't get that running game going, you're putting a lot of pressure on a freshman quarterback, a true freshman, who Pratt has looked really good at times. But, I mean, again, he was under duress almost the entire game against Houston. As you mentioned, SMU, you stepping up in class this week.
Yeah, no question about it. The thing about with Pratt, he's going to be like every freshman quarterback, okay? If he isn't supplemented with a rushing attack, and I know you're going to throw it, man, I'm sending everybody at you, because then I think I'm not fearing that he can read coverage as well. If I got an experienced quarterback like Boucher is, I'll rush him. He's going to see where the opening is. He's going to get the ball downfield. Freshman quarterback's totally different. And you saw that against Houston, that once they stopped the run, then the game plan was pretty quick. Hey, let's get after him at numbers. He's just going to throw it up there and try to hit somebody, and he was all off with it. But I think the key again to Tulane is not so much throwing the ball, but can you control the tempo of the game with your backs and your offensive line running the football?
Yes.
Because when you do that, you got a chance to win. Because now you supplement your young quarterback. He's got a live arm, and he gets the ball in some tight spots. But again, you can't put him in that spot.
No, and they were a different team after Claybrook went down because the pressure was just overwhelming. We got about a minute and a half left. ULL, Louisiana. Talk a little bit about them. They lose last night in a tough game. But how good is that team?
Man, Billy's got it going, and great recruiter. His offense works. But what is it built around? Running the ball. And they got three backs that could really run the ball well. They give up some big plays now and then, but they're better defensively this year than they were a year ago. They're a really good football team. Man, who surprised me is how good Coastal Carolina is.
It shocked me last night.
Man, they got a guy coming off the edge, and you saw Levi Lewis. Man, when he spotted him, he was taking off with it. They've got a chance to win, at least be in the conference championship game.
Yeah, and that's good news. Again, the only ranked team up to this point here in Louisiana, unfortunately. Hopefully the teams will turn it around. Mike, as always, very much appreciate you joining us on the program. Again, he'll be having his book coming out soon. Of course, you catch him on WWL Radio and everywhere else. I mean, again, always in demand. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program now at 6 p.m. here on WLAE-TV, as we're now going live at 1 p.m. Also at 10 p.m. on WLAE-TV 2, The Deuce. You catch us on Friday night, 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLAE, and then 2 a.m. Saturday morning on The Deuce, 5 p.m. on Saturday afternoon on Pelican Sports Television. The WLAE YouTube page is where you can also check out every single episode of this program, especially if you're out of the viewing area. You can check it out there. Also, don't forget ericasher.com. We have every single episode of this program there as well. You can catch me on the radio now 4 to 6. That's right, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on 106.1 FM. That's Nash Icon. And you can listen live at ericasher.com. The TuneIn Radio app, also the iHeartRadio app is where you can listen live. So again, check us out on the radio. Drive time 4 to 6 now on 106.1 FM. Thanks to Mike Detillier. Always great to have Mike on the program. Also want to thank the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy O'Connor, Tommy Failer, and the best director in the business, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.